She's talking and we
Oh,
can't
she
hear
has to
her.
unmute.
Oh, now she's, okay.
Can you hear us, Erin?
She's on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry, you were on mute too.
Hi, Erin.
All right, all good.
Okay, we're good.
Adequate notice of this regularly scheduled meeting of the Frenchtown Board of Education has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act by notification to the Hunterdon County Democrat on January 11th, 2024. A copy of this notice has also been posted at the public school, at the municipal building, and filed with the borough clerk. And we'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, Mr. Blackburn,
Here?
Mr. Dermody,
Here.
Ms. Howard,
Here.
Ms. Klein,
Here.
Ms. Nakahara,
Here.
and Ms. Parchallo. Here. Okay, since we have no members of the public, we will move on to the board secretary report because we have no presentations and recognitions tonight. And just so everyone's aware, I will be taking minutes. So if I ask for people to repeat motions, that's why.
Someone else to do?
It's not a lot. The reports and things we'll just give to Teresa, and we have the recording as well. So I'm good. Thank you, though. So our meetings, coming up, our March meeting is early, so, just please take note of that. It's the 19th of next month. So just 3 weeks from tonight.
I did want to mention that I'm pretty sure April 30th is Passover.
April 30th is
I'm
Passover.
almost positive, but let me double check.
Don't think so.
No? I thought it was-
Yeah.
Starts the 22nd?
That was the 22nd? Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought.
It starts the 22nd, yeah.
Okay, so we're okay. We're
Sure,
good with
sorry.
30.
We're gonna put you correct.
Unless you do a last night Seder.
Yes. I don't know why I had it marked on my calendar the same day. Maybe was the meeting a different day before? Whatever, I'm not gonna waste your time.
That's okay. Everyone should have received an email with your personal and financial disclosure forms, which are due by April 1st. But if you didn't receive the email or if you misplaced it, just send a note to Teresa and ask her for it. So we're going to move on. Our first item of discussion is the budget. And there was a very handy attachment that was sent out this afternoon as an addendum. It's the Frenchtown Board of Education budget 24-25 budget development. In your attachments. What is it called in the attachment?
Budget reduction.
Budget reduction?
Budget reduction.
Budget reduction, okay. I had it open up, so I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Okay, so this was put together by Teresa, because Teresa isn't here tonight. If there are very specific questions, we will take them down and have her address them. But, we'll give everybody a few minutes to kind of, go over this.
Is it linked in the agenda?
Yeah, I think it's separate.
It's in the folder as budget reduction.
Yes, you got it. Correct. Scroll. There's a second email.
Yeah, there was an email this afternoon, a second one with all the addendums.
These are for 123, so hold on.
Yes, just keep-
No, just keep going.
Yeah, here.
Nope, we shared it.
You go back out just to see.
And just as a note to folks, the 4.1 is the increase in,
Looking for-
the tax levy. As you'll probably remember from last, meeting, we can go up to that amount because of the adjustments. Usually we can only go 2%. But with adjustments, we could go up to 4.1%. So I think the question that we're answering here, there are a couple of questions. One is, how much of an increase to the tax levy would we like to see? And when we're making that statement, of these things, what could we cut to get to that point?
So these are all things on the chopping block, potentially.
Yes,
227, is this it?
Yeah.
227 budget agenda, or 227 budget
There we go.
reduction.
There we go.
I apologize, everybody.
that's okay.
The pilot revenues would take away from pilot revenues are just a contribution to get us to the 3.7?
This is with taking into account the pilot
Okay.
revenues.
Okay.
What are PEA allocations?
That's the preschool grant application.
Hey, can you re-explain for me how making these cuts gets us to a higher tax levy?
It's
How are they connected? How should I be thinking about them as?
so those numbers, 4.1 and 3.7 indicate the increase in the tax levy.
Okay.
So these first four
Mm-hmm.
are if we increase the tax levy by 4.1%, to get to that, we would have to make these cuts. If we didn't want to increase the tax levy that much and we only wanted to increase it to 3.7%, we could make these additional cuts listed under 3.7%.
Why is the preschool thing a cut?
Yeah,
Isn't that an addition?
not something we.
So
already
why
get
is
from the
it-
State for free? Or not for free?
So that's something we have to, that money is something we have to do because we're running, like we received the money. So that's part of what we have to do with that.
Is that like our contribution to the?
So that would like cover allocations such as like a nurse, custodian, the percentages that come out of those pieces.
How can we cut that out of the preschool program?
We wouldn't cut that, that's something we have to do, so we can't cut that.
So
Now
what's
we're reading.
the 59,000 PEA allocations? When you're
Yes.
saying those reductions, is the 59,000 because that's coming from the grant?
Yeah, that has to,
Okay.
yeah, that's coming from there, so
So-
we can allocate towards that, yes. So
that's
we've
an
done that
addition,
already.
not a subtraction.
It's a subtraction from
From the general.
the
like,
general
from the-
operating budget because we're getting it from the 8th.
We can't cut it.
Yeah, I think I understand.
So these first four things
Yeah,
are not really cuts. They're reductions that we've already made in the budget to get us to the 4.1%. I guess based on reductions from where Teresa was telling us we were at the last meeting.
okay.
Where we took it from, so we talked a little bit last meeting about like the REIT, right? So that's something that we haven't got, but that goes hand in hand with Title I. We're expecting that money. That's expected. We're concerned that there might be a little lag with the reinstatement of that money because we had an off year in there. So Teresa was explaining a little bit that last time. So,
She's expecting the letter because she hasn't gotten the rejection letter. That's what you're talking about?
correct.
But you
She's
still haven't gotten
expecting
the
it.
letter saying we're getting it?
Yeah, correct.
So these things have been budgeted, but they're things for which we are getting grants to offset the money we've allocated in the budget. That's why they're.
We have
taken out.
allocated, correct.
Okay.
Like the 59 has been spread upon our budget, right, our gen. But we have to do those things anyway, like that's part of it.
If
That
you
makes sense.
remember at the end of last
did.
meeting, when she was talking about, when Teresa was talking about the budget, there was a shortfall of 70 something, that I'm assuming 79,000. So I think these 4 items are what will
Okay.
make up for
If
that.
you go down a little further under preschool expansion aid, it can explain, it kind of just, you'll see the numbers that
It's at the
differ,
bottom of
that we
the-
did offset, right? Versus,
So
what we actually, the revenue of the grant. Right? So remember, because the grant ends up being, you know, free for our community, right? So we don't get the revenue gain that we
Yeah.
used to get. So that's where that number lies right now. Below, you know, the number under the 59,037, that's the number of what we at this moment appear to gain for our budget.
So is the implication, if the tax levy goes up to 4.1, then these 4 items from tech services, ESL services, PA and custodian will be covered by the increase? Or is the implication, even if we have the maximum increase, these 4 items have to be covered? That's where I'm sort of.
Yeah, to get the
They're-
4.1.
No, it
They're
gets
different
us to
things.
4.1. These aren't cuts.
These are not
first ones
cuts,
are
yeah,
cut- are
so
not
like
cuts.
possible additional reductions is the next column and then further reduction. So those are that, by applying the monies in the first column, I'm, you know, doing my best to Teresa here.
Yeah,
And explaining those links. Yes,
Jim,
So,
are any of these, is anything on this list, is this just all shaving off reduction? Does anything get cut according to this list?
it was a little broken up. Did
Well,
you hear
I
it?
think that's the question.
Okay.
So I think what Teresa is basically saying, or what we're seeing on this addendum is that if we increase the tax levy by 4.1% and we have these 4 reallocations,
Mhm.
then no additional cuts are needed. If we wanted to increase the tax levy by 3.7% instead, then we could consider these 4 other cuts / reallocations or reductions. None of those are really significant
These are just,
cuts.
yeah, these are things that are again in our budget, but we've made based upon the current data and where we're looking at this, like what we paid already output this year, that's where we feel comfortable bringing that, this, you know, in next year's budget.
And then
And the
there are
pilot
3
revenue,
other possibles.
right. And the pilot money, we threw that in because we did receive it today. So we still, you know, we want to certainly look at that with a bigger scope, because that number was not the number that we anticipated. And we found that out this afternoon, and it was just, it was off by $8,900. We initially had had budgeted for 100,000, that's what we were told. Initially in just verbal agreement, and then when it came through today, it was slightly less what we were just verbally shared. So we just have to make some more adjustments with that too. But that was, you know, we have some work to do, so we just found that out this afternoon.
So the maximum tax levy is 4.1%. And that budget reflects these first 4 things being reduced, right? So if we want to get that to be a lower tax levy, we cut some more or reduce some more things. Okay.
We just keep reducing.
Yeah,
I thought you said you weren't reducing the first 4 things.
they've already been reduced.
Yeah, they have already
Reallocated,
been
yeah.
reduced, like it's not so, yeah, and we're anticipating those, that Title I goes hand in hand. But like the DB tech that we're talking about, that's already been reduced to get that number.
Okay.
The ESL services is, has been taken out of a certain pod since we've got here, which is the Title I piece. And again, like Teresa was saying about the letter, we haven't been told we're not and so forth. So she feels at this point, this afternoon, she feels confident that that we're still, we would get that we would get that this year.
And overtime, part-time, what is that?
That's
So that's
occupational.
That's occupational therapy and physical therapy.
Whatever.
It's all right. It's good to ask
I
this
think that's
question.
something.
Yeah.
We could be, I can,
So the background here, though, is that, we're losing more state funding. It's, I think, our last dent,
this is our last dent, and then
which is why we have to increase the levy to 4.1% to begin with.
and then the ESSER fund piece we've been running through that and doing a number of different things, for our school or community across the board, right? But that ends September. We really want, they encouraging us to, eliminate that money as soon as, pretty much by June, July is more what Teresa and I have been talking about. It's just what the state is encouraging us to do, not to wait for the very end and be done, at that point. Which we have a plan, and, a number of the things that are on our agenda for the rest of the year, some of those enrichment things and things we'll get to. But yeah.
Also, it's like our cut this year it's significant, but it's not comparatively as significant as it
Versus
has been,
prior
but it's
years,
the increase between, it's the mix of that, the increase in cost. Put us at a shortfall with no additions of $80,000.
Yeah, right. So just, so again, that OT, PT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, that's just something we've been looking at the budget. We feel confident, based upon what we projected from last year to this year. And obviously that's a little ebb and flow, as everybody knows, because that's individual special education needs. But, putting our heads together, we feel like we can take that 10 away, needed. The maintenance piece, we budgeted for 8 last year, so that's where that 3 comes from. We think we can get away with 5. Custodial services was 6 last year. We're thinking we might be able to cover 3. Again, this is all based upon how we utilized it and what our needs were this year. That's the most current, data that we can use to make our best projection, being it's a 1-year projection, right? So hopefully that helps a little bit, just explaining where we're coming from on some of those things. And then, the last piece, the further reduction pieces are just more of a, which some other schools do, where they ask for a fee to be a part of a club. Or, our Kingwood, a great relationship with Kingwood, as we talk about 3, maybe 4 girls trying out for softball in a couple of weeks, which is awesome. But maybe we, most of the elementary schools are paying a fee of typically, I'll just say roughly, I know a few schools, $75 is that key number. We pay the $250 because that includes like uniform, coach and everything, because it's coming out of Kingwood's program. Because we don't have the numbers to, suffice our own. So those are things like a pay to play, tuition type thing to continue some of those things. Obviously, those are not, for the work we've done, those are, tough for me to sit here and say some of that because, we built some things. But those are options and they're not uncommon, in our local districts either, some of those fees.
I wonder, I know, speaking as a parent, that a lot of families are concerned about the lack of programs in the older, grades, and that they are so excited about like being able to do the Kingwood.
Yeah.
I wonder if you'd be surprised at the amount of support there would be for fundraising towards Frenchtown kids being able to do activities.
Yeah.
It's like something, because I know I hear a lot of parents talking about it.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think fundraising could be a way to go. I think, a couple of members of our PTO, I wanted to kind of go through tonight, and I do definitely want to get a meeting with them and kind of see what potential opportunities we could continue to collaborate on with, in future, based upon our outcome here,
Yeah,
in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So,
I think it would round out some of the holistic kind of feeling of Frenchtown, that, available.
and then
What does
Yeah.
that mean, financial confidence?
So it's just a word that I think that it's become the common word that, that's being used based upon the ESSER funds and a lot, that we've received over the last few years.
Oh, they're
That's what-
expiring. They're not
Right,
being
so they're
funded anymore.
expiring, and so what have we done, right? So when we
Uh-huh.
talk about things sustainable within all these last couple of years, like we have a wellness room, we have, that's pretty much gonna run itself, and, we have those equipment. We've been able to upgrade our technology, computers, the teachers' computers, student computers access here, iPads, things like that. We put, they're more than 1 year situation, they're hopefully 5 to 7 to 10 year, solutions, right?
Sure.
Which we have been able to do. But now we're coming to the end of that. And so what some things do we see, like included in the budget, which we gained from it, right, was going back to the basic skills support teacher, right? Having that person in the building, working through the academic gaps that exist, and we all know why. So I just think, that's something we really still firmly believe in. The ABA piece is, that's part of the special ed program that we're running here. Speech OT, PT, these are, occupational therapy, physical therapy. These are things that, are part of the individualized programs too. So they're things that we don't really have too much control of. We'll talk, you'll see a little bit later.
And these are things that were covered by that money that's going to end.
But no, but the general fund now is covering these pieces. These are the pieces we're suggesting, for you guys to look at, that we think, at this point, we're recommending these pieces to stay.
Yeah.
And that's, part of our conversation tonight. Are there things that are not included on the other side that, wow, we really need? I mean,
And the
Of
things
course.
on the other side here are things that were covered by that money that's gonna stop, but you're considering cutting.
yeah, right now as it lies, it's not in the budget right now. And this is why we have to either increase that money need or look at some other options.
How does Homework Club cost that because there's a teacher there or something?
Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead.
Is the OTPT up above possible additional reductions, same as 3.7, different from the OTPT speech below?
So we've been applying portions of that within the ESSER monies as we've gone along. So we were trying to, supplement that opportunity during that time. That was something that was, those services are sustainable. They might ebb and flow a little bit, but they're sustainable. Like, they're gonna be here.
What is all included under applied behavioral analysis?
So that's pretty much, at this point, that's pretty much the person, our professional that comes in and does it, our VCBA. And the work that she does with the teachers, programs and things that they're doing and building. But yeah, it's her time. There are, and she has, I'm just gonna say very generally, she's connected to some student IEPs in the building.
Okay. What decisions are we meant to be making from this document?
There aren't really any final decisions to be made tonight.
Okay.
We are at this point kind of being given, here's what's going on, here are the decisions we'll have to make. I think Teresa would probably appreciate a general idea of what the board is comfortable with as far as the increase in the tax levy.
Right.
And if there is something, and again, no final decisions tonight, but if there's something that is screaming out to you saying, there's no way we should cut this, like we need to find the money to do this, or if the opposite is true, if there are things in that included in the budget side that you think like, we shouldn't be taking the money to pay that.
Yeah.
Those are things,
Those are
I
the two
think what
questions.
Teresa's asking for is that there aren't going to be any big surprises in this discussion when we have the formal discussion.
Well, Jim, if anything here, breaks your heart most to see cut?
In the list, the not included in the budget list.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we don't have much of a choice of the above stuff other than in the bracketed box. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there are,
Well, we
What do you
could take a 4.1% tax levy and then keep these things that are the next,
Explain to me what that means. Take a 4 point.
So each year we get a certain amount of taxes.
From the community.
Right. So, we are allowed to raise that amount to 2%. That doesn't mean our budget gets increased by 2%. It's the amount of taxes that we get gets raised by 2%. So,
If we
however,
take the additional, who loses it?
no, so what happens is we can charge, it's an increase in taxes for the
Okay, that's what I
taxpayers.
need to know.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
So to be really concrete, because I am new to this process.
Absolutely.
So are we talking about whether the school portion of the tax bill for people who live in Frenchtown will go up 3.7% versus 4.1%?
No,
Okay,
I'm gonna see if I can, so last month, Teresa gave us a sheet that talked about what those percentages meant. I wish I had that at my fingers right now, but it's, and it basically broke down, like, how much, when we're talking about 4%, how much is that per $100,000 of assessed value?
Yeah. yeah. Right, it's not a straight, I understand.
Yeah,
But
but there was a breakdown of it last month.
If you off the top of your head know what percentage of Frenchtown's total property tax budget goes to Frenchtown Elementary?
I don't.
we all got our little tax things in the mail in the last week or so, and I think it's actually broken out.
It is,
It's broken out specifically there. So
it is, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
I don't, yeah.
So, okay, so all
And it
the-
changes from year to year.
Right.
Because the high school amount changes, the elementary school amount changes.
I guess the question underneath this is that, like, frankly, what are the political implications of these differentials? And how is it gonna be experienced by people in the community? And clearly we want more money for the school, because we're
Right.
advocates for the school, and that's why we're here, but I would like, what is your experience as people who've done this before? What is that?
I think
What
people have
is
better
that?
understanding of where it's like, if I hear one more time, how could that school with no kids in it need more money? It's like, they just don't understand. It's just so frustrating to have that conversation.
that's not
over
gonna change.
again. Yeah,
No.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think, property taxes are a hardship on everyone, including the people sitting at this table.
Yes.
So nobody likes to see their taxes increase. Historically, we've had a pretty, supportive community. And we haven't had, people coming out to board meetings telling us, we increased the taxes by 3% instead of 2%, or the tax levy by 3% instead of 2%. I do personally have a concern this year. And I've shared this with Jim and Teresa, because we are now receiving these pilot funds. And there was definitely a segment of people in town who were not happy about this pilot agreement. And I think that there will be certain people who will feel that we received these pilot funds, and in addition to that, we're increasing the tax levy above the 2%. And that's not okay with some people. So I think that's something to keep in mind. It's something I've been thinking about.
Were there promises made that once the pilot money starts to kind of enter into the school system, it would help keep this, so they just were left with that impression without necessarily any?
I don't even know that they were left with that impression, but the feeling is that the pilot wasn't, there were some people who felt that the pilot agreement was not fair to the taxpayers in the town. And if the money from that agreement is going to the school and the school continues to raise taxes above the 2%, I'm sure there would be people who would not be happy about that.
And it's a pretty small difference between 3.7 and 4.1.
It is.
You can sit there, there's 2% to 4.1. 2% is the base increase, 4.1 is what we're asking for.
Is there,
So that would be
the
around 40 grand,
contract negotiations with
600
the,
households.
how is that
So that's,
factored into all of this?
so that's still a blank on there too.
Right.
Right.
So that's that's important.
Wait, what's
But
that?
Teresa has budgeted.
What if trust the budget the way, because we directed her last time to put it in,
Like trying to
right,
figure out what their
at
total
whatever it was for, whatever it was. So that's in,
Yeah, she's budgeted for an increase, but that's a variable because we are in negotiations.
okay.
I'm still thinking,
So the kids can have all this fun.
So that could affect the bottom line as well.
yes,
If I'm doing really crude math on it, just to like help us
Yeah.
kind of figure out, right? If 79,000 or 80,000 is 4.1%, we can assume that 2% would be 40,000 or so.
2% is roughly, and I don't judge me, this might not be exact, but it's close. And I did know this in our conversation.
yeah, so 1% was around
Yeah,
16,000.
so I wanna say it's 45, 2% represents 45,582. That's a
Oh.
rough number.
Wow. Okay.
Well, if
And how
4.1
many-
is 79,
So that was a
Okay.
number that we talked to. I don't know if that's exactly right. That's why Teresa would be, certainly, I would want her to answer that, but.
say even if it's 45, right?
Mhm.
We have around 600 total households in Frenchtown that pay taxes, property taxes. So if you break down 40 to 45,000 by those households, you net around $68 per household annual increase.
But it's per 100,000 is usually the way it's done because the
Yes.
assessed value is so
Absolutely,
variable.
right? So like if you have a house that's worth 200 versus $400,000, like it'd be $30 versus 100, right? But I'm just trying to get us to understand what the total
It's-
annual number would kind of feel like.
Yeah,
And when we think about like, you're doubling it, it feels like a lot, but in reality, it's like, it may be 150. Which could be a lot for some families, especially in today's economy. It may not be, but I think it just to give us a range, like, I don't think anybody's property tax bill would go up.
Well, remember also, this is the increase over the allocation, not the entire allocation, right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of just what the increase would be,
Okay.
but it might be helpful to like bring back the OG numbers to just help us understand how,
Yeah.
how the town would be impacted.
so
by
when
different decisions.
Teresa does the budget numbers, like at the budget hearing before we vote on the budget, she has that list broken down, the one that we had last time, of exactly what the implications are for each household or per 100,000.
I mean, in terms of the political conversation, Rachel, I mean, we're getting, we reduced our budget by 80 grand just to get us to the maximum
Yeah,
tax levy, right? I mean, and still not enough because of the money's been taken away by the state,
Yeah.
you know? Vote for someone different, that's not gonna, whatever, change it.
But I'm still curious to hear, Jim say, like, which of these cuts do you think are gonna most deeply affect the school?
yeah, it's a good question.
Either above the box and,
Yeah, I
everything.
mean. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna weigh in on obviously the academic piece, and then I'm also gonna say social piece, right? Like the
Yeah.
club piece, right? I think, you know, I promise, you know, we would be creative in trying to figure out some, you know, some of that, some sort of balance there. I mean, I think unfortunately, some of our community opportunities that we've been able to build and work through, you know, I don't know what they look like, just being honest, right? And I think those are potentially opportunities that maybe our community could work together to do a fundraiser. Potentially our BTO could be a player in that, maybe our board could be a player in some of those things. So, I think, you know, I think we have to, but I think we would want to focus academic and balance that social too.
So
right?
which of these line items are we
And
fighting
clubs are
hardest
not
for?
expensive though.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I mean,
So, you know, an academic support club would be homework, right?
Right.
You know, that's something, you know, 5th through 8, just like tutor time in K4, that's been a positive experience. I mean, we have quite a number of students since we started that this year in December, I think December, last week in November and December. I mean, we're getting anywhere from 8 to 15, 16 students staying after school to work on
Wow.
their academic work. I think that's pretty telling. And really, you know, it's great to have the teacher support there. And I mean, we also have paired it, just being very transparent, and obviously we've paired it with things like volleyball club and basketball club. So we paired it where, hey, you know, if you go and do, you know, your work for 20, 30 minutes and the teacher really sees you working hard and putting in extra, okay, now head on over to basketball club or volleyball club with something that's really, you know, motivating for that student, you know, so.
I like it.
We've been creative with, you know, because I don't know homework club on its own, I still think
Not a
there's,
big
I still
draw.
think there's gonna be a draw. I don't know if it would
We can
be
rewrite
that
it.
much of a draw. And kudos to the teachers that are helping out in there
Yeah.
too, you know, so.
And some kids probably just want a space to stay after school, you know?
Sometimes, I mean, I would say the reasons are varied for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How essential is that, I mean, how long have you had a positive behavior specialist?
That was something we did during this time. It was just something to just, we just felt with the sport of mental health
Yeah,
and it just, what we've all went through the last couple of years, it was just something that we felt like we needed for the time. We knew that wasn't gonna be a forever thing. But I feel like we've definitely gained, our students have gained
yeah.
a lot from it. I think our staff have learned a lot from that. And I think because we've been modeling it, there's takeaways for the, you know, not to put it on anyone else, but I think we have definitely a culture differently and
Right.
teachers and families. And I think there's things we could do, within maybe not having that position. Would we want that position? Of course, but
investment.
I think
will live
we've
on.
done some things, we've laid some foundation that we can continue to build on. Maybe not to the degree, certainly that as a person who's in charge of that, per se.
And if all that stuff has been really integrated into the culture and, you
Right.
know, people have learned from it and all of that,
Right.
it may not be an all or nothing. It could be a
Yeah, it
little
could
bit
be,
less or, you know, right?
yeah, reassign and, you know, just,
Or
yeah. I think it could be, it could look, I still think it can live, it just will look a little differently.
So the things you'd be sad about would be homework club and the sports. Put you on the spot.
I know, I mean,
Which is an excellent answer.
I mean, if you're, I'm trying to be, you know, helpful to the board, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be the two spaces. And it's not a shot at any, you know, it's
Yeah.
not that we don't like any, I like everything on there, right? I think our team was part of that and.
Here's a question, Jim, because
Mhm.
these other ones that are maybe aren't as high ticket, so to speak, like STEM, German, music, and yoga, okay, could that be a PTO? funded
I think,
thing?
I think it's definitely worth a conversation and a discussion, sure. Cause I think, to your point, I think we have a lot of opportunity. A lot of our clubs stem from not only student interest, but staff, interest or wheelhouse or, strength of our staff, right? And I think when you see some of those things, they're not as maybe much money to run and so forth as much as maybe we might think, on paper and monthly, but we see it today, right? Some of these, we already have the resources. We already have the basketballs, right? We already have spaces to do sketchbook club and paper and things like that. So, it's not maybe an extravagant expense that maybe we thought it was. I think when we see it here, so it's probably doable potentially in some other venue or arena support for sure.
So what we're trying to decide tonight is whether or not we feel comfortable with the 4.1 as opposed to 3.17.
What number?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we need to see what the board is comfortable with
Is it,
as far as the tax levy increase. And again, if there's anything, that screams out to everybody, like, no way, should we cut this or,
are the choices 2%, 3.7, and 4.1, or are there increments in between?
I mean, I'm sure if we
Okay.
Yeah,
told Teresa, we're not comfortable having it go above 3, she'd go back and look for other things to
Or we
cut.
say,
Or whatever.
how about we do 3.8? Or instead of 3.7, what have you.
right.
Yeah.
I think if we could get a gauge of maybe how high, or maybe you want this number or closer to this number, that's what I think she would.
So this is about giving guidance to Teresa so that next time when we sit down and do the budget formally, we have had these conversations, she has responded to them, and we can
Right.
really substantively, okay.
And that,
This is
she's not
conversation.
coming to the budget
Right now,
hearing
yep.
saying like, okay, I assume everybody's comfortable with 4%, and has the board all say, at that point, no way,
Will there be another opportunity for discussion before we have this final,
The,
No, it's a good question.
the budget,
We're in the 19.
the preliminary approval is March 19th.
Okay.
When we do the preliminary approval, all the kind of minutia of the budget does not need to be decided, but the number of the tax levy increase needs to be decided.
Okay.
We won't need to say at that point, like, oh, we're okay with the homework club but getting cut in half, but not this, but we need to give her a number about the tax levy.
How important is the OTPT?
That's my question.
Pretty important.
And important.
I don't understand how you can cut it if it's a required service under people's IEPs.
So it's not cut.
It's a reduction.
It's a reduction. So what we've taken last year's data, and we had a projection of what we thought it was
Something
gonna
less
cost.
than you thought.
Right, so
So you're
Oh.
comfortable with this reduction?
Teresa and I have had a conversation. Yes, we're comfortable with it.
Good.
Within that number.
Okay,
We feel, and although that number may change based upon our most recent data, we
this
feel
$10,000 number?
correct. And just the 17 just represents how it was applied in previous years in that ESSER fund.
I just feel like based on the greater conversation that we've been having about like the academic health of the school and all that kind of stuff that we seem to be wanting to move towards, like, what, you seem like you would have the best idea of like what things are best for that kind of stuff and like,
Yeah.
what is, I mean, I look at this and it's kind of, different language for me a little bit, but trying to understand that. But I also, like, I'm not in the school every day, understanding which of this money is like the most effective at making the school a better place.
I think I'm probably okay with the maintenance / custodial reductions.
Yeah.
It's fairly robust structure we have here.
also had a vacancy, right? So that this reflects the vacancy.
Yep, and that, I'll speak a little bit more to that later, but yep. So,
And you see
but you see
in
the
the-
adjustment made.
in the first group, there's already an adjustment
Right,
made
so if you go
for
back
that
to,
change.
right? So that's just right under the PEA allocations. So that's been an adjustment made already.
So ideally, we would not cut tutor time and we would not cut after school clubs. And then we're saying maybe with the Kingwood activity cost could be you're saying maybe all three of those things could be a PTO thing? Or something?
I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, I think
You're
it's a
proposing-
conversation to look at other opportunities. I think the PTO should definitely be included in that for sure.
There
but I
are
also
certain
think
things that are better to ask for help with, like things like
Those two
that,
things.
that are kind of a, can you fund this for 1 year?
Yeah.
Kind of question.
Yeah.
As opposed to like any, you don't want to ask for, fundraising
Operating budget.
for like part of the general budget.
Right, we can pay the teachers.
Right.
That's a lot of muffins.
So maybe, so what you're saying is we could feel more comfortable cutting those things in the operational budget and hoping for additional help
Right.
and trying to save things like OTPT and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think if we're good, I'm ready to sort of make a proposal, but I'll wait until.
And
I mean, I think if school needs money, we should ask for as much money as we can from the taxpayers. A lot of money, school needs money, it's hurting for money. If people wanna have a robust school, then this is what it's gonna take. That's how I feel about it, but
What'd she say? I was gonna say something in different words that meant basically saying, we're gonna have the school, we should pay for the school.
yeah,
And
and it turns out it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 4.1, right?
Kate, do you have a hesitance on that?
We get crucified regardless of what kind of stuff. We
Yeah.
get crucified for 2%.
well,
So
that's why I asked about the politics, just, that's not gonna dictate what we do, but it's just to be mindful of what the conversation is, and just to have it in mind and be ready and be prepared.
I mean, I think generally what Adam is saying is true. The people who are going to be concerned about the 4.1% are going to be concerned about the 2% as well. And the folks who are, going to be supportive of the 2% are going to be supportive of the 4.1%.
The people you can't please, you're not pleasing regardless.
just so.
I mean, I could make the argument either way. But the bottom line is, as has been said, we've had a continual cut in funding. We are very appreciative to have that pilot money. But, we're talking about pilot money this year, that's just below $100,000 when we've received cuts in excess of 500,000 over the last 5 years. In addition to, I mean, you can see it in, like in those increased costs.
Healthcare.
Yeah, the healthcare and, our special ed costs have increased significantly. All things that are not fluff by any means, things that we're required to have in our budget. And I would welcome anybody who would like to look at our budget and try to find some fluff.
Exactly.
Um, Okay, Michael, any feelings about, I don't want to, I don't want anybody to not have a.
My gut was to go for the 4.1%.
Okay.
I was kind of glad. That
Okay.
was the last.
I mean,
So I'm glad
Is our
somebody else
responsibility to the
first.
school or to the public as a school board?
both,
And
our constituents are everybody in the town.
Right.
I think that's why it's like really important to be super clear-eyed of what the benefit is
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
school, which is sort of what we're looking at here, but also what the burden is on the public. And I think, and Teresa could probably help us figure out exactly what that is and better weigh it. Because I think there's also like inherent benefits of having a school in a community that therefore bring increased municipal tax revenue. Like we know that it keeps a community more thriving, it's much more vibrant, like younger families participate more in local business, they tend to spend more money, right? So it actually having a school in town keeps our community much like a thriving community. And the reality is, if we look at the budget, the school budget is so bare bones that it's not like we're choosing between, you know, nice to haves and great to haves. We're just trying to keep the school open at this
Would it
point.
benefit us to be able to like maybe get like a one-page write-up that we could share and, you know, at a.
We'll have a budget presentation for the budget hearing next
Yeah.
month.
And
There's
is
a
that
budget
shared with like the Frenchtown?
I usually send it to, Brad and the council, and it's an open meeting, it's a budget hearing, so.
Maybe something good for us to have prepared to share with people as.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it's also, it goes on the website. too, so, Yeah.
Typically, do members of the public come to the next meeting, the budget meeting? Can we expect? No, okay.
Typically not. The only time we've had good attendance at a budget hearing is when we've talked about making significant cuts. I mean, there have been years where we've had to make really significant cuts. So, those years we've often gotten people here to give input, which is fantastic, So, and I will ask Teresa to, for the next meeting, but even beforehand, to send out that sheet that she had last time showing what the 4.1% is for the average household
Yeah.
and for every
Yeah, that'd be
100,000.
helpful.
That'd be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
That would be nice to include in that little bit. Yeah.
Yep, I have it.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
I found it, but, it's not clear
Okay.
to me what the 4.1% would be.
I think the
So-
other thing that's gonna hit us this year is just because there's the tax reevaluation that every household that owns is currently, like, I think there's a lot of people confused around like,
Absolutely.
like, how much
People are
is
already
it
in a
the
panic a
school?
little bit.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, I'm totally confused
Yeah.
with my rate section, so
I know, it's like,
I'm,
Where's
yeah.
the appeal? Everyone's looking to appeal.
No, I'm not.
I'm not.
I'm not looking to appeal and I don't really understand why. So I just think there's a lot of confusion.
Exactly.
On the whole, and the other thing is, and Teresa can tell us this at our next meeting, but, the increase or decrease, or not the increase, but the increase from the high school, is based on a very complex, formula. So we're never quite sure if our, high school taxes are going to increase and by how much. 2 years ago, we had the least increase out of all 5 sending districts. Last year, we had either the highest or the second highest out of all the 5 sending districts. It's based on a large number of things, and Teresa can let us know, but that's another thing that we, often try to kind of
Yeah,
think about, so we know.
people bucket all of the school together
Right.
versus thinking blue high school.
Right, well, also just like if there's gonna be a huge increase at the high school, we wanna know that when we're making a decision, so, all right. Well, thank you, everybody, and, thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thanks for a good discussion.
Okay, so moving forward, we need a motion to approve the minutes from the January 23rd meeting.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Okay, and then we have, Jim's report.
Right, good evening again. So we just have our HIV updates for this month. And then we did not have any short-term suspension or anything along those lines. And then those are our security and fire drills we did this past month in January with our local police.
So we'll need a motion to approve the HIB report.
So moved.
Now second.
That's the last one's report,
Okay.
right?
Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Alright,
Opposed or abstained? Okay, anything else, Jen?
Yeah, I'll just want to run through a couple quick things. So just want to always, as we do each marking period, second marking, since we last met, we did, recognize our second marking period honor roll students. So just real quick, in our fifth, we had Josh Jean. In fifth grade, we had Josh Jean and Dennis. Sixth grade, Haley, Rosie, and Zoe. Seventh grade, we had Gianna, Cassidy, Hope, Penny, and Amelia. And eighth grader, Mateo. So kudos to all of them putting in the hard work. So I just always want to have that minute to really, not only their effort, but typically, so many cases the teachers are playing a role and oftentimes families or somebody from the community helping out too. So appreciate all that for sure. So kudos to them. We did our Coffee and Kind awards as we continue as part of our culture and climate and, just reinforcing our positive environment. So just quick shout out to Jarek, Jane, Silas, Greg, Haley, Owen, Oliver, Clementine, Finley, and Anika for their being recognized in the month of February. And then we also have our sportsmanship awards, which goes out to Anika, Ava, Finn, Lydia, Aviel, Josh, Jahai, Ariana, and Joey. So that group of students, and they're getting, getting opportunity to be recognized for their well-doing. Typically a picture, if you walk down the hallways, each one of our character building words, we have signs and then their pictures next to it each month. Whether it's outside the gym or it's up on one of our hallways and so forth. So we just continue to, it really just becomes a nice point of reference for the moments that maybe we're not being as what we need to be and what we have modeled before. Hey, like, isn't this you up here, right, from doing this and so forth. So it's just another tool in our building for our teachers and our team here. Since we also last met, we had our second open house of the year for preschool. So it's great. We had another, I think 4 or 5 families that came. Leffler went over just more creative curriculum things and another group of parents that asked questions. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ippolito ran a little music sing along for the students that came. And then we did a little art activity with Miss Hurley. A number of new families that potentially could be in our mix for September. So we're really excited about that. Now, since the beginning of the year, we now have 2 more preschool students in preschool. So we are now up to 14 in this class. So we are done for the year because we have to leave at least 1 more spot open for potential early intervention situations. So we're done for now. And we're excited because we're growing and we're getting to that number where maybe we can expand to that Milford opportunity. So Teresa and I continue. Teresa's on another meeting tomorrow with the state regarding PEA. And I remain in contact with our representative, and we're just going to keep navigating through. But it's definitely going in the right direction. We're finding more and more people, which is great. And I think it's probably kudos to everyone here on the board. I know getting it out and supporting, and we're trying to just communicate it out as much as we can. So
I've been working the Creek scene real hard.
So yeah, so there'll be more to come certainly, but we continue to we're continuing to grow, so that is definitely exciting. I think it's everyone's gaining enthusiasm around it.
Are there families in the current program who are expressing interest for Milford? If we're starting to get to like, you know, the point that any.
I'll just on it generally, I think their first choice would be here is what I typically hear at this point.
Yeah,
But yeah, on our registration form, we just keep encouraging families to go, we have a first, second choice type of scenario.
yeah,
So, we did, what we gained from it is we are on a first come, first served basis for next year. That's, new update probably since last meeting, that's where we are. And then, so when we fill here, then we'll build. So that's new information from the last time I had a
Yeah.
meeting, because I was able to attend a meeting on the 8th, to get few more answers than I didn't have in January. And I'm sure there'll be a few more answers, but the next time I have a meeting, I think we're all in year one, we just continue to ask the questions and we use some colleagues and programs and other people that have been a part of the program.
yeah.
So we'll
Getting a
continue.
lot of buzz around town.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I can't say enough of that.
So
That's
to
good.
make sure I understand, you are at 14 for this year, right now.
This year, yep,
And so some of those kids will continue next year, and some of them will move into kindergarten.
correct. Some of them, yeah,
Do you
I can
know-
bring you those numbers next,
do you
I
know
can bring them
do you
next
know
time.
where you are for next year? Just, you have a full class?
Not a full class yet.
Yeah,
I definitely know that. So, but I will bring those numbers next time we meet.
okay.
Okay. They might be better than they are today, so
Yeah, well,
I'm
yeah,
hoping.
they will be.
Okay.
That's by March you want, right? Aren't you?
We want, I
So you
missed
want
that.
people to register by March?
We want them to register
Like
as soon as
yesterday.
possible.
Yesterday,
Yes,
got it.
as soon as possible,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
March is fine too, but as soon as possible.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Mhm.
All right, just speech update, just so everybody knows, we did have a quick, meet and greet with our speech therapist, actually the same day of the open house. We were busy that day. Katie Probell, so she's in the building, she's working with our students, she's on a 2-day-a-week schedule right now, and then she'll, be, she's here, but she might shift her days in the coming, weeks, so just so people are in the know. She is here. We've been doing a number of activities around Black History and, Mental Health Month. We had a Dr. Vidalik in the other day, doing some things with our younger students, which was a lot of fun. They got to use this massive toothbrush. They were, very excited to do that. Certainly continue to, check out our Facebook page, and always a terror as our hashtag. If you're doing anything related to school, please do that. We have another Route 29 studio opportunity, coming. It's on the agenda for tonight, and Ms. Hurley is willing to support. Art Yard, we're talking with Art Yard right now. We're doing the, cardboard project in plastic bottles. So we just did a phase 1. Megan came up and got a bunch of stuff from us the other day. So we continue to do that. So if you have any of those items, they're downstairs below, please drop them off. And we're also working on another opportunity. Probably by March, I'll have an update on what the next opportunity be for Art Yard and our students too. Another opportunity. We're in discussions right now. Yoga Loca, last sessions, we did that recess, yoga sessions, which have been really a big hit with students. That Bonnie comes up tomorrow. That'll be her last, session tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. Modern Fossil Project, just so people are gonna know, had a lot of collaboration with the town and Modern Fossils. We do have to reboot, our permit from the school. So I'm working, and we picked it up the other day, and I'm working through that right now. So I'll probably have that on our agenda for next month, what that would look like and what that entails. So we're getting there. And then I was gonna say the winter walk is tomorrow with Go Hunterdon and our team, but actually we canceled it because I guess it's supposed to rain. So Mr. Ryan suggested we would push it to Thursday, so we'll be walking on Thursday. And that's all I have on my end for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to hear that with these collaborations with art and it's like very exciting. I hope they're generous. They are being generous.
They're being very, yeah, they are, they're being, they're working with us with pricing for sure. And, because because we know what they really are, and like they're impressive. just,
Yeah,
As
no, it's
as
a
an
great,
entity,
great,
and they
yeah.
definitely are working with us with rates, as much as possible and trying to find that fine line. And I think, once we've now engaged with it, this is something we hope, maybe there'll be some possibilities in the future for sure, right? And maybe they look a little different monetarily or, different ways to collaborate. But for instance, like the cardboard and plastic bottles, I think that's a really, I think, easy way for us to support each other, right?
Mhm.
And when they have events and stuff, we can put it a part of our weekly updates and things that, so I think it's a nice, opportunity to continue, but we also want to keep building these student opportunities as much as possible, because it's great exposure, and to be able just to walk down the road and be in these, I'll just say, like, big city, New York-esque type opportunities, that you don't have to get in the car and do. And so many different artists coming from all areas of the world, and really just a lot of knowledge to gain from these experiences for sure.
No Shakespeare this year?
So Mrs. Ippolito, probably be an update. Mrs. Ippolito, has been working with, in communication with our River Union team. So I'm hoping to hear something in the next, I know they're in discussion, so we're just waiting on a proposal of something. So in regards to what they're gonna do, I know I've heard some things. So when I have a more definitive thing, I will certainly bring it.
No.
Yeah, we make
Makes
some
it
collaboration. I'm excited to, see Mrs. Ippolito, working together with them. I think it would be a neat thing. And also, camps are on there again for this year. Mrs. Ippolito and, Miss Hurley are up to do that again. That was definitely, first time we ran that last year, and it proved to be, a revenue for us. Not tremendous revenue, but definitely a revenue. And I think just overall good experience for our students, and it's great for our staff to have, be empowered in that type of way, and, create opportunities for our
Has
students.
the info about the camps gone out already?
Not yet. They have to be approved tonight.
Okay.
And then we will be getting out soon for sure, like within the next week. I definitely want to get them out.
Yeah. I don't
So,
probably-
as people are starting to plan their summers.
You were just talking about it in the playground today.
Okay,
Thanks, Katie.
thank you. I had a couple of things to talk about. One is we were unable to get, when to come out to discuss academic achievement and the board's role in academic achievement. She has, meetings with other boards, the date, tonight's date and our March date, meeting date. So we did, ask her if she could come for our April date, and she is able to do that. The other option would be if the board wants to try and set up a special meeting, we could do that. It would involve, obviously, us or the majority of us being able to attend, and also, making sure that her schedule could allow it. So that's one thing that we, could possibly do. The other thing, we had talked about was, furthering the discussion about academic achievement. And one of the ways that, I thought we may be able to do that, best is to create an ad hoc committee, to kind of have those discussions in committee with Jim. And then, with an ad hoc committee, they would come to the board and report on what was said at the meeting and what was discussed, and any findings. They don't vote on anything or do anything like that. They just kind of have the conversation and bring it to the committee or to the board. So for an ad hoc committee, we cannot have more than 3 members of the board because it creates a quorum.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. That's the one thing, having a little bit of a smaller board, it does limit us for committees. But if we did that, I thought maybe that committee could meet, you know, maybe 3 or 4 times before Gwen comes, and kind of have those discussions. And then, you know, she'll come in April unless we decide to try and get a meeting with her before that. So anybody have any comments or suggestions about moving forward that way? Do you like that idea? What does that think?
As opposed to trying to like jam it into the actual, the board meetings and stuff like that and give it some more space to breathe and like a separate kind of.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
I wonder, whether having Gwen meet with the full board after this smaller group ad hoc committee meets, what would best use her expertise and knowledge to inform the process? Would it be having her work with the committee, or would it be having, or would the committee benefit from her perspective in doing its work and bringing back meaningful recommendations to the
Absolutely.
board? So, but we also want to do it in a way that makes sense timely wise, because it would be nice to do that and have those recommendations also inform the strategic planning process, or be integrated with it in some way, or be part of the research for it and have it all kind of meld together.
right.
So I just want to be sort of as efficient as we can with our process so that we're using our time, and I'm really aware of how much is on your plate, and I want to make sure that that time is just really used optimally.
I mean, I think in an ideal world, we'd have Gwen come, give her presentation, and then the committee would meet. But considering the fact that that date right now is set for late April, it feels like that's a long time to wait, for that committee to start meeting.
Would Gwen potentially be open on setting maybe like a Zoom call with the committee to kick things off early on, so then as the committee starts to
Probably.
pursue work? there's some
If the rest of the board is comfortable with that, with kind of the committee, you know, having that conversation with Gwen. And then
she returns in
obviously,
April, yeah.
either she returns in April or the committee can report out on what was said. In addition to which, when she comes out with a presentation, she generally is very willing to share her notes and her slideshows. So, you know, that's a good idea. We might be able to just do that.
So if there's only 3 board members who can be part of this sort of ad hoc thing, who on the school side who would be on this committee is my question, in order to make it as well-informed and know what we're talking about and successful as possible, who should be represented on it?
Well, Jim will definitely be on it. And then
Yeah.
3 of us,
Great.
right?
And nobody else from the school side? And it's a,
Oh, as far as teachers and things like
or
that,
just
other staff.
educators, or,
We didn't talk at all about.
Could they
I mean,
maybe eventually be
That,
added on?
yeah, that's something that the committee could talk
I mean,
about
it's
bringing
really,
in.
Jim, whether you have anybody sort of on your leadership team who you really, respect, and also for whom it would be meaningful. that
Right, yeah.
We could add to the conversation.
We could definitely.
I mean,
look
to
at
think
that.
about
I
it,
mean,
nothing
yeah,
that
for sure.
needs to be, but just in terms of having the right people at the table to have that conversation and know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
I think, we could definitely look into that. I think, let's get our, guidance and then see from there. Is that what you're suggesting?
yeah, I think so. But I certainly think if there's somebody on staff who
There's,
is willing.
I mean, yeah, that, I
that
think,
would be-
once we have an idea of the plan, definitely, I think there's a couple people that I'm thinking of right now that could be a part of that.
Great.
Sure.
So are there people who would have the time and the interest in serving on that committee? it would likely be, maybe twice a month at this point. At least for the next two, March, April, May.
I'd be interested.
So,
I think you've got everybody would be interested.
All right.
Who we want it.
Okay, all right,
So,
If the interest is more than 3 people, and since kind of Jim's the ask of Jim is kind of the same regardless of if it's 3 people in the committee, does it make sense to bring it into kind of the full board conversation, or, you know what I mean? So
a special board meetings, in
Yeah.
other words, instead of an ad hoc committee, I know I'm interrupting.
No, so
Susie,
you're.
I
But
also,
to
if it
have
doesn't make
it-
sense to do
To
that,
make
I
those
don't have to
meetings
nail it if
official
you
board
guys wanna do it.
meetings and have a couple of official board meetings that are just, is that, what are the pros and cons of that approach?
Well, that's actually.
What do you think?
yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's, then it becomes an open public board meeting that has to be advertised. Minutes have to be, it's the whole,
Yeah.
it's just like a regular meeting.
Right.
Which eliminates some of the kind of working committee atmosphere that I'm thinking more in terms of,
Because it has to be public and it has to be recorded and.
and there are 9 people there, plus possibly members of the public.
Right. Okay, understood.
So I just
Step
think
back
that
if you 3 wanna do it.
that kind of like, sit down, get your hands dirty kind of work doesn't tend to be done at those meetings with, with that many people.
I think we should just get started in that hot committee. For at least a couple of meetings to see, gauge the size of the task.
Yeah,
Then that may point, for the next development, whether becomes larger board meetings or if it's a continuation of the ad hoc committee with Gwen's guidance.
Okay.
I think also just mustering or figuring out the questions that would be most effective to ask one.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe like a fair compromise is to have the ad hoc committee, but that the committee at each one of our board meetings gives a little bit of like here's what we covered this month and what our aims.
Oh,
are.
yeah,
So
sure.
that has to be,
The rest of the board.
that definitely has to happen, yeah. Okay, all right, then, I will contact people and, I'll talk to Jim, we'll, make some decisions and contact people and we'll set up some meetings. The other thing I wanted to discuss tonight was the strategic plan, which I sent, now, hopefully, were people able to open that in
Yeah,
the,
there's a PDF and a Word, same thing, open.
Yeah.
yeah, so I wasn't able to open it in the addendum. I had to go back in my emails to open it, so I'm glad everybody was able to open it. So for the purposes of tonight, I just wanted to talk about the 2 different models. And they give a good, illustration, I think, with that checklist of, this is what you get with the 3D, this is what you get with the basic or the standard
Yeah.
program. So I will tell everybody that the last time we did strategic planning, Gwen led our strategic planning.
Gwen, the same Gwen.
Yeah, she's been our field rep for several years. And there was one other woman who came with her, for the strategic planning. Some of the time, Diane, who was our field rep years even before that. But we chose to do the 3D program when she came, partly because of cost, and partly because we felt that some of the extra things included in the standard program were not really that important to the process. But that was how we felt at that time. Obviously, again, we are, we don't have a lot of funds. So, this is not yet a budgeted item, although Teresa knows it's coming. So, and I looked, the other thing I did look at is, there was a list, at the end of that file with all the different towns that had participated. And there are many who used the 3D and not
Saying that,
the
most of
stand,
them,
yeah.
like 3/4 of them.
Yeah, so I feel like, you know, those are just all things to note as we move forward. Now, there are other options for strategic planning. There are other companies that do it. I do know that, like, the high school just recently did strategic planning. They kind of did a search for some companies that would do specifically like strategic planning for schools, and the prices were pretty sky high, way more than, that's, 4,000 or 6,500 that New Jersey School Boards is charging. So, I'm not sure that the board, given the budget constraints, has any interest in looking elsewhere. Julie, did you participate at all
I
in
did.
strategic planning? Adam, you were there, I know.
Yeah.
Michael, I don't remember those.
Yeah.
We were in the cafeteria.
Yeah,
That was before your time there.
yeah, I was trying to think. I didn't want to say it, but. I personally, I felt that Gwen was very good
Yeah, she's
and that the program, that she ran a good program. I can share with everybody. I didn't think to bring it tonight, but I can share the binder that was the end result and what she supplied to us. But she came out, she ran all the meetings. She was very good about, kind of drawing out stuff from the public. She was very accepting of, I thought, everybody's kind of opinions and did a really good job facilitating. So that, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend going this route again.
I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of strategic planning for nonprofits. I charge a lot more.
Yeah.
So, for nonprofits. So
Right.
I'm just saying that from a price perspective, it makes sense. I like the 3D program with one difference, and I wondered, there's something in here about assistant establishing a research community to collect internal and external data in preparation for report to the planning council. And I think it is real, and that's not in the 3D program. And I know you've been collecting a ton of data, but I really feel like if we can design this so that whatever happens with the academic
Yeah.
program then drives in the strategic planning, the process, that all that information comes in and informs the process of goal setting and all of that, that we use the data really well as part of our process, then I would be really comfortable with the less expensive one, as long as we are attentive to that.
If my memory serves me correctly,
Okay,
when we started the 3D plan,
yeah,
we did have to do at the first meeting, there was like a kind of state of the school
What a swap.
presentation.
Yeah.
So, I think that we drive that presentation.
right.
So we could certainly include in that presentation the findings of the committee.
Makes sense.
But beyond that, I will also say that it's driven by the people in the room. So, and I think you and I had this conversation, like the last strategic planning, there wasn't a lot of conversation about academic instruction or academic achievement. there were, there were a lot of, and that discussion was driven by the people who were there.
I mean, one of the downsides of these kinds of processes is if you bring people into a room to develop a plan, who don't have information or knowledge, I mean, they're stakeholders and they have investment in the community, they don't really necessarily know what is important. That sounds terrible. So I feel like that I believe 100% in community engagement, but I believe also you have to engage people by also giving them the knowledge and the tools to engage in a meaningful way and not just sort of shoot from the hip. Because if people come in and they're shooting from the hip, then you don't get the quality that I think you deserve and need in it. So I would just want to be mindful of sort of how we prepare materials and how we sort of set the tone,
Yeah.
set the stage, and what we share beforehand so that the group can participate in a way that's really beneficial.
Will there be an outline of the strategic plans in terms of like academic, social, like, will it be kind of like streamlined like that, where it's kind of?
Yeah, it's in here, the way she kind of buckets it.
Yeah, and I think it could be driven by that initial presentation of like, here's what's going on.
Right.
And in that, here's what's going on, we can say, these are the things that we want to work on or need work. But I think that's a really good point. And I feel very strongly that you don't ask people for their input unless you're going to take their input seriously.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's why I am
Yeah.
so
We have to give them the tools that they need to get that input.
right. And that we need to understand if we, if we are going to look at improving academics in some sort of way, then I think we have to have a pretty good grip on sort of, if we feel like we're underperforming or something, what the root causes are and what are some of the possible solutions and what they cost and how to do that. And so that we can share that in a way that enables people to meaningfully participate.
And I think, one of the reasons I feel strongly about having New Jersey school boards do the strategic planning is that they are in so many districts, they've seen so many things, and they know what our limitations are and what's possible. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Then if it's okay with everybody, I will ask Teresa to add $4,000 more to the budget. Okay, all right, moving forward then. We have no policy updates tonight, so we'll need a motion to approve consent agenda items 11.1 to 11.24.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, comments or questions on the consent agenda?
Could I get a copy of the scope of work for the HVAC system upgrades? Could that be made available to me and other people?
Yeah, check in there, yep, for sure.
I'll shoot them.
Yep.
And under 11.5, we have like triple X for the pilot revenues. Is it just because we're still waiting or is that?
It just came in this afternoon. It was approximately 91,000.
That's in that document we got, right?
Yeah, there was
$91,102.15.
Wow. Exact. Yeah. Jim, who's, B2 Associates who made that, donation? For the positive behavior? $750 for the student cost.
Oh, so. I don't want to speak. I'll bring it, I will,
Speak more to that another
yeah,
time.
let me speak
Okay.
more to that,
Yeah,
but
that's
yes,
fine.
it was. We had to, yeah, let me
Okay.
speak more to that
Okay.
next meeting.
That's someone we shouldn't be accepting donation from, is it?
No, it's very positive, something that's very supportive of, and I'd rather I want to do a better job of acknowledging that,
Okay.
if that makes sense. I appreciate your patience with that.
Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda?
Just one question. I'm not sure if this is actually a threat question, I'm sure of it. The water main line replacement, item 11.11. But it was living in town, it was free from the water company.
Right.
Couldn't it also be free for the school?
Yeah.
This is a different piece of pipe.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, we'll get an answer from you on that, but it definitely was a part of that, like, there was significant. There was a significant cost in our favor where we didn't pay. I think there's just that there was an offset because of a reason, and we'll get that reason from her.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, then we'll do a roll call. Mr. Blackburn?
Yes.
Mr. Dermody?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Nakahara?
Yes.
And Ms. Bartolo?
Yes.
Okay, if there's no new business, we do have executive session tonight.
Someone-
Okay. We have a second to move into executive?
Second.
Okay. Ernie, can you let me know when we are not streaming for executive session?
Sure. I was told that.
This is Nakahara. Yeah.
Yes.
Would not be able to be
Correct.
in
Oh,
executive session.
Because of
we
the
can't have you in executive session, Aaron.
Oh,
virtual.
Oh.
okay, well, have a nice time.
I can call you and update you if there's anything, that you need to know, but you might as well just log off because we're just gonna come back. There's no motion that's gonna be made afterwards, so we're just gonna come back and adjourn.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
Thank
have a
you.
nice night. Thank you.
Bye, Aaron.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Thank you, everybody. Have a nice night.
So should we have? Is Ernie gonna